All right, good evening. I want to welcome everyone to the March meeting of the Niskayuna Task Force on Racial Equity and Justice. We want to begin with a roll call, and just by way of a warning, uh, my glasses decided to break today, so I probably will look like the stereotypical 1940s librarian for the night. Okay, so bear with me. All right. All right. Please please say present when your name is called. Angela, Ari, Aya, Cobra, David.
Present.
Doc is here. Liz, Hayden, Jocelyn, and of course John is not here. Kay,
Present.
Pretty, Sabrina, Sandra. Okay. I guess let the record reflect that as of yet we don't have a quorum. Means we can go on and have a meeting. Unfortunately, we will be unable to vote on the items until we have a quorum. All right. But I do think it's important to go over the issues nevertheless. Uh, we want to take a moment and review the minutes, please. Let's review the minutes, and if there are any questions or concerns about those, we can bring those up. So, are there any questions or concerns or corrections to the minutes? Yes.
I have one, minus. Um, Real simple. Where we talk about what places we suggested to find the intern, I suggested that we seek out the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts. And that's not recorded in here.
Okay.
And that's just a matter of record,
Okay,
all right?
that is so noted. And I'm certain John will make that correction. And if, and I'll say, John, please make that correction when you see this film. Okay.
I have a suggestion or a suggestion for correction. Under the PowerPoint presentation for Murray and Dennis, it says Murray informed members that a work group was created, including Town Supervisor Jamie Puccioni. At that time, she was not a town supervisor. And I think it sends the wrong message that she was, a supervisor was involved.
That is a great
Fair point. Yeah.
So that should be corrected.
Yep.
Okay, are there any other corrections? All right.
Doc, excuse me, I would just like to thank, I think it was Cobra who pinch hitted for John in doing the minutes for last
Hey,
month's meeting, so
Let's
thank
give
you very
Cobra
much.
a hand. She did a, we like her style. We notice a distinct difference in terms of the look, and it's okay, nice.
Just one more point. Second to last line of that paragraph says local students worked on the design changes. I think it's important to point out that it was a school project and that they were not actually working on the design changes.
Okay. Are there any other corrections to the minutes? Okay, we won't vote on those minutes unless we actually get a quorum. So we'll just move on. I'm sorry, I didn't see you, pretty.
Not regarding the minutes, regarding the procedure. I know we don't have quorum right now. I know Elena is on the meeting. Wondering if whether we can just say whether we agree or don't agree, and whether we can email or contact the folks who are not at the meeting and take their votes separately, whether that's a procedure that can be allowed. I'm just asking so we can, it looks like it's not uncommon for us not to have a quorum, and I don't want work to be stopped. So what I'm saying is, when we don't have a quorum, is it proper to email members who were not there and see if they have any concerns with the minutes and approve and get a quorum by email?
That's a good question.
So that's for
Uh,
Elena.
I guess one of the things we have to see if the bylaws would allow for that.
The bylaws don't say.
They don't say.
So Elena
If
can
they
let
don't-
us know.
If the bylaws don't allow for it, you can't do it that way.
What if the bylaws don't mention it at all?
It can't be done that way.
Okay,
It has to be allowed by bylaws.
thank you. That's one of the now. To be fair, I can only think of one other time when we didn't have a quorum. All the other meetings we did have a quorum. Now the quorum might have come a little late, but there's only one other meeting where we didn't have a quorum. Okay, at least to my knowledge, and someone else may have a different memory of that. Okay, let's go on to the discussion of the town logo project presentation. As you know, I had some serious reservations about that project. However, I was reflecting on a couple of things. First, at the meeting, I reflected on something that Kay had said, and she had mentioned that this group was at the preliminary stage. They really had not done the work. Okay, it was clear by the questions they hadn't really done the work, but this was preliminary. But on, I also last night at our leadership meeting, it was just David and I got some wise counsel for David. David said, "You know, Doc, you're the expert. Why don't you give them some guidance on this?" And that appealed to the professor in me. And I said, I thought about that. And I think that what we can do, whereas I'm not excited necessarily about about changing the seal per se. I do like the idea of a Niskayuna Native American History Project, where that group would actually do the work of bringing up the history of of the indigenous people who are in this town, who are in this town. Okay, and to look at not only their issues from the past, but what's going on in the present. What are their concerns? Because that's where the equity and justice comes into play. And if they are not here, then what happened to them? In fact, I would even recommend, as opposed to what was the project was done with the students, I would even recommend that uh, this group particularly would develop a curriculum on the history of Native Americans in the town and present that to the board, the school board, for possible adoption in the curriculum, so that therefore you're talking about, if in fact there are 1,000 students to 1,200 students at the high school, you're talking about thousands of students every year learning about the history of indigenous people here. Okay, now that is where you start talking about racial equity and justice. And so I guess what I'm saying is that I'd be willing to, I certainly would be willing for us to support this idea with two caveats. The first caveat would be that they would do the work, and so they can come up with something that's more substantive as opposed to something that's symbolic. But the second thing is the realization that to do this work, this is not something that they should be striving to try to rush through for this fiscal year, because quite frankly, we already have an agenda for this year. Okay, this is something, if it's going to be done right, this is something that they should be thinking about having ready for next year. Okay, take the time, do it right. Okay, and that's I thought about that, and someone once said that you know a great leader listens to his lieutenants, and a good leader listens to his lieutenants, but a great one heeds their counsel. I appreciate that wise counsel. That was wise counsel, and so I would say, and we can't vote on this right now, but I would say that at least we could support this to the extent, with the understanding that they go to the drawing board and do some serious work. And if there are members of the task force that wants to join them in that effort, that's fine. But our agenda for this year, okay, is set, and that's something that we perhaps can consider. If once they come with a substantive project, something we can consider for the future. Okay, I love the idea. I mean, put me in check if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, Niskayuna is a Native American word. Okay, so what happened to them? Oh, are they here? How did they influence the development of this town? Those are the things that actually could be the beginning of substantive discussions. Okay, and the beginning of inclusiveness. All right. So those are my thoughts. I'm excited about the idea that this could be done. Okay, and I also would be very much excited about it being done right. Okay, not rushed. Okay, and so I'd be willing to, as a expert in race and ethnicity, also as a demographer, I'd be very much willing to give some recommendations, and perhaps the entire task force can provide recommendations to that group, and then they can go forward and continue to work. Okay. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I want to pause, and if anyone else has some thoughts, either about that group or about a response to what I just said. We got to start having some water in here. My word. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so again, those are my thoughts, and we certainly want to encourage. We want to encourage any group to be inclusive of the rich history of the town, and to elevate that history. That's very positive, and I'm excited about that prospect.
Doc, so just for the sake of clarity, what is our further direction to Dennis and Marie?
Our direction to Dennis and Marie would be to basically continue their work uh, with, in fact, and also with some recommendations from this task force as far as guidance. Okay, and if in fact there are members that want to work with them in that process, that's fine. But understand that this project is something they should have ready for next fiscal year. Take the time, let us do it right. The fact of the matter is, this is too important a topic for anyone to rush it. Okay, great. Well, we certainly want to encourage them and to continue the good work. Sure.
So I was remote at the last meeting, but I heard all the commentary. I just want to be clear on when you say be ready for next year, based on what it sounded like you were asking for, was that the information that they present has been inclusive of
That
at
is correct.
least having reached out to some Native American groups and gotten their input.
Absolutely.
So that's what you're saying, that when they come back, they should have at least addressed those concerns that you brought up.
Absolutely. In fact, that point and many others will be included in the list of recommendations.
And that
okay?
short of that, you're not necessarily feeling that it's ready for
It's not ready.
presentation.
It really isn't
Okay.
ready.
Okay.
No. But yeah. Any other questions, comments, testimonials on this? Yes.
Is that group, Dennis and Marie, and others that are working with that group, is it autonomous, or were they just seeking our input, or are they, despite what our recommendations from Doc, are they going forward with their plans to make changes?
Well, they are independent of us. Basically, they can choose to follow our recommendations or not. Okay. We again, what we're saying is right now it's really preliminary. What they're doing is preliminary, and for the most part, it is in essence like a progress report. But there's much more work that needs to be done before we could consider supporting something like that.
I think, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ken.
I think one of the things that was also mentioned, Cobra, was that this will be a resource intensive project. So it's not, the two of them cannot do this by themselves. So they are looking for not just support, but also resources to help out when we do come to the project stage.
Yes, and I would just add, I think that when they came to give the presentation at last month's meeting, my understanding was that they were looking more for an endorsement of sorts from the task force regarding their work, endorsement blessing, so to speak, to keep moving forward on it. and getting participation on a more personal, direct level from task force membership in that effort. And I think Doc essentially gave that to them today, at least the support, the endorsement with suggestions for moving forward and how to move forward with a bit of a timeline there as well in terms of next fiscal year.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that? All right. Pretty. Is there any more on the task force self-assessment?
I developed just one slide that summarizes everything. So let me just share that. Do you see that? No. I'll try again. Entire screen. Share. Oh, it's okay. All right, so it should come on now. Okay, you see the screen? Let's see, slideshow. Okay, so this basically summarizes what the survey was. Last time when I spoke at the meeting, 7 members had responded, participated in the survey, sent out another reminder, 1 more person. So 8 out of 14 or 15 have participated in the survey. So basically I took the 3 major types of questions and I did a median average. So anybody who said, they had the choice to say, don't know, strongly agree, somewhat disagree, somewhat agree, strongly agree. So if they said they don't know, they got a 0 score. The highest score any question would get would be 40, which was strongly agree. So the first question was about a set of questions. 5 questions were about task force characteristics. And so I'm going to go through the green circles first. So anything 20 and above is, a higher score, which is good. So identities are recognized. So that got a score of 25. Task force members are kind and have empathy. That got a score of 30. When we looked at support for task force membership, that BIPOC leadership is encouraged. That got a score of 25. Basic needs are considered. That got a score of 25. When you looked at process, people agreed it was important. Complexity and systemic thinking was important. And that transparency and decision-making was done at the task force meeting. So those were all got higher scores. Nobody got like 40, but they were above 20. Nobody got a 0, so the people knew what was happening, so that was good. In terms of the lower scorers, the task force having authentic relationships, people didn't know, or they gave that a low score. Anti-racist organizing in terms of support got a low score. Organizational space, support in organizational space and interrupting racism got lower scores, as did that the task force is action-oriented. That got lower scores. In general comments, it was that new members should have an onboarding process. We just kind of put them in and just assume they'll carry on. There was, again, a suggestion for anti-racist organizing and building trust with shared activities. And there I put a convergence because these are some things that other organizations in the town have also been interested in. And so there's potential for partnership over there. And then there was just a couple of suggestions about the survey itself to simplify it and make it more tangible. And then, and the last one, the continuum of racial equity and justice. Where were we as a task force? 5 out of the 8 felt we were still in what they call familiar dysfunction. There was considerable conflict within the task force. 2 felt we were building relational trust, and one felt there was an explicit commitment to racial equity and justice. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Are there any comments on this presentation?
I would just like to say, first of all, thank you, Preeti, very much for assembling this data and doing the research. As the leader of the person working towards this, would you have a summary statement to make, an overall statement in a few sentences of a couple minutes or something of your impression of what it indicates? I mean, you've given a great summary of the data itself, but if you were to put a narrative to it,
Yeah,
a brief one, what would the takeaway be?
that we are very good people, we're kind, but we are not a cohesive group. We are not doing things together, and people want to. And that's really it, that we need to build trust and we need to do more things together. That's in short. And then that we don't know if somebody says something which is racist, people not sure how to respond.
Thank you.
Pretty, thank you so much for all of that work. It's a ton of time commitment and passion commitment, and truly.
In fact, let's give
appreciate
Pretty a hand for that work. Come on.
Thank you.
Truly. But it also goes to show our lack of ability to work together. Only 8 people filled out a form for 14 people in a group that we're supposed to be committing that we are passionate about working together. And for me, that's just incredibly frustrating. As a new member, I jumped in wholeheartedly, totally, but we're also missing how many people from today's meeting, and we are often missing people from meetings. I have an incredibly busy life, and I could be working right now. And I have turned down multiple job offers because this is a priority for me. Do I need the income? You bet I do. But I wanted to be here to affect change. And if we don't have members here to help us affect change, then I think we really need to, perhaps in our workshop, really get to the heart of our level of commitment to be here. Because I'm sure there's other community members who would like to be here, who would like to do the work. And I am not trying to call out people individually, but I am saying if in the 8 months I've been here, I've seen you people, that's it. I mean, that's incredibly frustrating. And I want to affect change because change is important.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Well, that's an excellent segue to our virtual retreat update. The date for the virtual retreat has been changed to the last Saturday month, which is March 26th. Okay, and hopefully that won't be too problematic.
Doc, the hours of that are the same, 9 to noon? Is that what it
Yes,
was?
the hours are the same, 9 to noon. I personally had some reservations about anything longer than that, given our busy lives. But I think we can accomplish quite a bit, and much of what you are saying, Sabrina, we can address. You know, I think we also really want to put in a caveat and contextualize one challenge, and that is this organization is essentially was created in the age of COVID, and that certainly I believe has a bearing. Now, true, we've been meeting virtually. That doesn't stop a person from coming virtually, but I do believe that that is a factor. I want to one thing that we're going to do, and when I say we, I'm talking about the leadership at our next leadership meeting, we're going to look at who's at these absentees and look at the bylaws. And basically, we're going to have to take some action. Uh, we're just, it might mean perhaps contacting some people, asking them if they want to continue. And if not, perhaps we can see about the process of getting some people on who will be more active, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that at some point, you're right. We have to say, okay, who's really going to be with us? Who's committed?
Just to follow up, it's about accountability more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you've put yourself through the process, the application of being here, then please be here. Please show up, please participate, because we don't affect change without participation. And I truly, truly understand how busy our lives are. Every one of us makes a sacrifice in something we're doing to be here. But there are people that consistently fail to sacrifice to be here. And I think that's a morale buster, that it is frustrating for those of us who are working on multiple work groups, who are making the effort to be here. COVID, definite impact, but you can call in from your phone.
That is correct.
You can leave your camera off and you can still go to the bathroom if you got to go to the bathroom. You know, we do it. It's COVID.
You sound like you're saying about something. You sound like you're about to say you can get here by airplane. You can get here by yeah. Cross the desert like an Arab man. Don't care how you get here. Get here if you can. That's one of my that's one of my favorite songs. Oh, but anyway, you're right. Huh?
And
The retreat is remote. Yeah. Believe me, if we didn't have this COVID thing, I think the best thing is for us to be able to have an in-person retreat, and we can really spend some time getting to know each other and laughing and joking, breaking bread, and really building the type of trust that we need to move forward. Okay. It is a challenge doing this. Okay. It is a challenge. But nevertheless, we're going to soldier on. Okay. So, yeah.
Sabrina, regarding your point about accountability, I 100% agree. There's a lot of us here who are year 2 task force people. So we've had a whole year to understand the kind of commitment it takes to do this work and the requirement of this work. And because of that, we made sure that when we crafted the application, that we put that time commitment so those who were applying also understood that time commitment. So it's really a self-reflection, I think, at this point, that if you think, you know, just realistically and truthfully, if there's something going on in your life that you cannot dedicate 100% or your time here, that's fine. Just own it and say, hey, this is not a great time in my life for this work. I'd like to step away, and I'd like to come back or contribute outside of this work. But you're right, it's taking somebody who really wants to work in this area, their place away from this work. So thanks for bringing that up.
Okay. David, with the fiscal year year end report.
Thanks, Doc. So, task force members, as we all know, per the resolution that formed this task force, we are required at the end of each fiscal year to provide the town board with a report of our work, our accomplishments, and recommendations moving forward. So this year, I will be working on the report as the communications person. And what I'm asking is that each working group provide to me by May 15th. So please write that down. If you're a member of any of the working groups, by May 15th, if you would present to me provide me with a list or a report of your own. So your own working group report that includes your accomplishments as a working group, and any recommendations you might have as a working group moving forward. At that point, once I've received the individual working group reports, the leadership group will meet come June 15th with all of the collective working group reports. I will craft a report for the town, including all that information, and we as a leadership committee will come up with recommendations based on your input and our analysis of the reports from the individual working groups. So again, by May 15th, please, so that we can, as a leadership committee, work on crafting a more coherent, comprehensive report by June 15th and fine-tuned by middle of July to provide to the town. Thank you. Or any questions on that at all?
I just want some clarification. What you're saying is each individual work group should provide you with a report by the 15th.
May
May.
May 15th, yes,
Okay,
please.
Not each individual in the work group, but each work group.
Correct.
Should provide you with that.
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks for clarifying, Sandra.
Thank you, David.
David, quick question.
Yes.
I know we have 3 work groups, but then we also have the student intern program. So as the work groups are working on their reports, can they also provide a blurb of how the use of the interns within their work group, so we can then put it under the intern program?
Great
report?
suggestion. Yes, please, if you would. Thanks, Kay. So if you would incorporate that component of your working group, the internship participation, that would be great. Thank you. Thanks for the suggestion.
Okay, we want to look at the updates on the working groups. Since John is not here, I would recommend that we just table that one. And
Or is Cobra ready? Or
oh, I'm sorry, Cobra. Oh, my bad. I forgot you were the co-chair. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me of that. Blame it on my head, not my heart.
Okay. Let me just pull up my notes. Okay, John emailed us, I believe last week. We did receive a response back from the Niskayuna Police Department in regards to sorry, I have to think of the word, the implementation task force. We received a response back. They started filling in the chart. John emailed it to us. There's a good amount of things that are done. They also estimated things that are like 3 to 6 months out, 9 months out. And he asked that we all take a look at that chart. And do you have questions? Do you have concerns that we can take back regarding that? I can tell you just by me personally going over it, as they fill in the chart, they say done, but we have no other information regarding what done looks like. What steps did you take to get to done?
Mhm.
What for tasks that are like, or for goals that need to be completed that are 3 to 6 or 9 months out that are being worked on, what steps are being worked on? Where are you at in the progress? What were the initial steps? So I just think filling in a chart and saying done, or giving a time period of 3 to 6 months or 9 months out, I would like to see, because that's vague for me. It doesn't really tell me how we're meeting or what steps are in action or what steps you take to complete that. So I would like to see something more. And that's just my initial thoughts of looking at the chart that John sent us last week. I don't know if everybody else has had a chance to look at it, but things are popping up as done, which is great, but I just don't know what that means and what's behind that. Let's see. The other thing is John and I did attend their meeting. They had a group meeting where they were going through the chart and looking at it, and they had quite a few members absent in their group as well. But there was some question about, do they need to meet every goal that's listed or not? And I think they've worked on some clarity that the expectation is that, yes, they meet every goal. There's a little word in there that says appropriate, what's appropriate for the department to meet. So there was just a little bit of question about that. So I did attend that meeting. That's where we're at with that. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Cooper.
Well,
Um,
there's some comments. But you go ahead. You go first, Kay. Then I'll go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Doc. Cobra, when you say they're filling the chart, are we requesting things in terms of any artifacts that support the answers?
I don't think John has requested, and I haven't requested. We just received this back from them. This is the first time we receive something in writing from them. So we haven't went back to them and said, can we now have follow-up documents in regards to what can we have regarding, the completion of this task? But
Right. Because I'm just putting my due diligence hat on here, and any change results in either change in policy, procedure, standard, or guideline. So any change will have a documented evidence on how that change or where that change is in the process. And there should be, like I said, we can request or aspire to request documented evidence. Thanks.
Yes. You want to comment on that? No, I was doing it. Oh, okay. I'm just trying to be attentive to my group here. I have a couple of points. The chart is nice, but the chart is not a report. I think that's what we all are saying. The chart is not a report. The chart should supplement a report, but the chart is not a report. That's the one thing. The other thing is that there's still so much vagueness on certain changes to basically address improper police behavior. And it's one thing I know as a sociologist is that you don't change behavior with little trainings. It's not a cultural issue. It's a structural issue. So in short, there has to be some policy changes in terms of consequences for specific law enforcement individuals once they go out of the line. Okay, I saw nothing about that. Okay, there has to be that type of specificity. Okay, where this is what when we see some real change, then there has to be some consequences. If you mess up, then this is what's going to happen. All right, haven't seen that. Okay, and so again, there's a avalanche of information there in the chart, but really, it's not really saying a lot.
How does that relate to and correlate into actual action, into policy changes?
That's
and-
right.
and-
Policy,
and
that's
to
correct.
I have to say this, I did notice from the collaborative report that the chart came from, there's lots of data that is missing that we don't have. Like we don't have the actual like personal biases of the officers that serve on the department. There was nothing that was done, I don't believe, to get that information, and we don't have like some type of measurement. We don't have that, and when they looked at the data, the elevated numbers for people of color being pulled over, well, what were they ticketed with? I would like to know, like, is this a matter of like an inspection sticker? Like, how does the economic factor fall into here? Or the factor of needing to issue tickets for just to balance out the budget, which is an unsaid thing that happens all the time. So I feel like the collaborative report that this chart came from, and the report acknowledged that there's information it didn't have and there was some things missing. So like, it's really important that we get some actual data. We need more data. And they need a central, one of the recommendations in the chart is that they need a centralized system where this data can be entered and where the demographics that weren't being taken before, of the race of the people who were being pulled over. I think in one district, it's hard because the report kind of connects Niski and is connected together, but we don't have any central data system at all for this information to go into and to pull it. So say if we wanted to get a report, I can't do that. I can't say right now, go back and give me this year from from 2 years ago and give me everybody that was pulled over for this we don't have that. And that's something we should have and we should have access to.
Okay, I agree with
When,
that.
Cobra, when you say we don't have that, as in the town doesn't have that or task force doesn't have that?
Like the police department doesn't have a central data system where we can go and say, can you generate a report? And we're looking for these variables so we can turn around and look at that and analyze that and look at gaps. I don't think there's a capability to do that right now.
And sure, they don't collect those data.
Correct. And that's like one of the huge downfalls of the collaborative report is that it acknowledges that we don't have the data. In order for us to get the data, we need the police department to put one of those recommendations off the chart is we need them to put and develop a central system where this information goes into and we can turn around and pull this information.
Another comment. In dealing with the schools, there were generic comments about working with the student Congress and all this. But what wasn't in the report is the fact that white cops view white kids as kids. White cops view minority kids as criminals. And so those generic statements don't address that specific form of racism. And so again, these are the types of things that they really need to address. Something else too, if your working group can make the rest of us aware of when that task force actually meets, okay, I would like to at least be present at one of those, because as you know, I don't have any problems asking difficult questions publicly. And maybe we'll get some answers. I probably get some ugly faces at me, but I do want to get to the heart. And it seems like to me these questions aren't being asked at the meetings. I'm not sure, but it seems like the right questions aren't being asked. And so I don't have any problems coming and asking some of those questions. Okay.
I don't think I personally don't have a problem asking these questions. That was my first meeting that I actually have ever went to. It was nice just to sit there and observe since I'm new to this coming in. But there are questions that I'm definitely comfortable asking so we can have that information. I just kind of feel like it's taking off. We're like at ground zero. Like, that chart came from the collaborative report. The collaborative report was missing data and had gaps. And now we're working on a chart as a result of the collaborative report and trying to get information to give us a foundation of some place to start.
So if the report is incomplete, obviously the chart is incomplete.
Right. We're going to have gaps. We're definitely going to have gaps. And it's about, I think, just getting the information to give us a starting point to work with and to take off from there. And for now, some of the things are very direct in the chart, like equipment that they need and they should have. My understanding is that I don't think the body cameras have been finalized, but that's something almost in the process of being finished.
Okay. All right. So thank you. The Community Service Committee?
Thanks, Doc. So I don't have any new business to report, and I was not able to convene our working group since last meeting, but I can speak to one of our goals for the next meeting, and that is to have a meeting with town council. Elena, is it Finnan or Finan? How do you pronounce your last name?
It's spinning.
Finnan, thank you. Sorry about that. To arrange a meeting with Counselor Finnan to discuss some of the questions that we're still looking for answers. We did talk about our last meeting, our working group last meeting, talked about the summer program with the Parks Department, and we're throwing around some dollar amounts about what are the fees charged to the families per child to attend, on what basis. So trying to figure out how much money is coming in, how much money is going out to pay for the camp counselors, the CITs, counselors in training. It turns out there's the way things have been run, for no particular reason, for better or for worse, but just the way it's been done has been essentially kids who have attended the camp in the past and wish to continue attending the camp. When they age out as a camper, they almost automatically roll into a CIT role. So one of our biggest concerns is, how is this just continually perpetuated without looking at the BIPOC feature of camp attendance, camp employees, and so that's one of our big concerns. How are the campers themselves targeted for attendance? Does it go through the school, the guidance counselor? Does it go through word of mouth? We know there are applications available on the town website when that rolls around, but so we're looking for some answers around that. Hopefully just to improve the accountability for the process itself, and improve the diversity of not just those that work at the camp, but certainly more importantly, those that are attending, and access to the whole program overall. So that's where we're at. Thank you.
Any questions for David? Okay, data and best practices.
Another slide that summarizes. So let me see. Okay, so the Data and Best Practices group, we actually disbanded in February because we felt we have reached how much we can do at this point by ourselves. So at the last meeting, actually, John had submitted our report of what we had accomplished, and what we found is there are disparities, and when we looked at various indicators from different sources, in some of it was town data, some county data, but we had considerable town data. And we also interviewed some folks in the town, and we identified 5 recommendations. One, and so if I can just say the 5, if you look at the 5 I's, that we have to be intentional. Equity and justice values, we have to be more explicit. The town is in the process of this year working on a 10-year comprehensive plan. So one of our recommendations is to make equity and justice at the heart of the comprehensive plan. So that was one suggestion. Laura Robertson was at one of our August meetings, and she was also one of the persons I interviewed. And I know that she intended to ask several of the town committees to help with the comprehensive plan. So that was one of our recommendations. The other is interconnections, that we need to collaborate and kind of work with each other and recognize the interconnections and provide opportunities to do so. Another one was to identify what we are doing well in terms of equity and justice, racial equity and justice. And there are some bright spots, and we have to identify, gather it, and share it. A 4th recommendation, when we collaborate, to make sure our collaboration is inclusive. And a 5th is, we are a data and best practices group. We looked at the data, a lot of the census data. Some of it is coming out this year. But the best practices has to be integrated into each of the work groups that we work with. So for example, you had Cobra say, data is missing, which is there are best practice standards for data, for police data. So that's maybe something that you have to do within the work group. it didn't make sense for an outside group to tell them. So to work on that within the work group. So then under that, you see the two rows that are what the task force could be doing and what the town could be doing. So for me, for the task force members, our work group is sharing the report with task force members. It was attached with the materials at the last meeting as well. And we hope the task force will present it or share these findings with the town, the report and the appendices which have the data. And we also encourage our task force to explicitly identify values that are important to us, because that will govern how we work. For the task force also to facilitate shared activities for authentic engagement, share narratives on what's working, collaborate inclusively, and identify performance indicators for us to evaluate and adapt. For the town to make equity and justice the heart of the 10-year comprehensive plan, explicitly identify values, nurture authentic engagement, also enable participative decision-making, share narratives, identify and share narratives on working, again, inclusive collaboration, and identify progress indicators. If you looked at the last town comprehensive plan, there were really no progress indicators. I mean, there was a lot of information. There's a great chapter on neighborhoods, but I think it would be helpful to know so where we are at right now. And again, to evaluate the work we do and adapt, because unless you evaluate, you don't know how well we're doing. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Pretty? Thank you, Pretty. Under additional topics, there's the student intern program update. Liz is not here, right? Okay, so we'll. Oh, Cobra part of that too?
Okay, so for the interns, we didn't get any applicants for spring. We are now getting ready to go into the summer. Applications will be due by June the 1st. That's the date we set. We do have more contacts this time. Sandra was nice enough. We do have a contact person that, Sandra, wait a minute, remind me of the name of the organization. It's the Girl Scouts, and we're working on a few more contacts to push it out get it out to more organizations than we did before, churches, local churches, and see can we get some applicants for the summer and to get them matched up and get them to the actual group so that they can assist. I think that's it. Am I missing anything, Sabrina? Okay.
Just a quick question now. In terms of in our outreach, are we also trying to ensure that we increase the number of minority students in the pool?
Yes, we're going to go back to Niskayuna High School as well and ask them how did they distribute that application the last time and which groups of students, like, did they get it, who did they get it out to actually? Because we have the contact person there at the high school, but I don't know how they pushed it through. Did they post it on a bulletin board? Did it go out electronically to all the students? I don't know, and I don't have any kids in the school system, so I couldn't tell you.
Mm.
I don't know how the kids got it the last time when they sent it out. I hadn't come on board yet. But we do have a contact person there. But now I'm going to dive into and follow up with them about how are we getting it out there and make some recommendations to see, do they have like certain groups in the high school, certainly that they must do that we can specifically make sure we're including everybody and getting it out to them.
Okay. One of the things that I don't know about Niskayuna per se, because I didn't have any children to go through that system. However, having raised kids and having dealing with guidance counselors in general, I find that guidance counselors often, I'm saying certainly most are have good intentions, but they also tend to be very selective in their distribution approaches in terms of information. And they may not guidance. I found that guidance counselors are not necessarily the best approach of
Okay.
information distribution. We might want to supplement that with some other ideas and just a thought. Because there seems like a lot of kids who just don't get information from the guidance counselors, and sometimes that's not necessarily by chance.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question. I am not as familiar with the bylaws. Is there any, are we allowed to post this on like more social media websites that are contained within Niskayuna?
That is a good question. That is a good question.
Like, how do we, because let's be real, like everybody's electronically connected.
Right.
How do we push this out to specifically more and get it out to Niskayuna residents that may have high schoolers or college kids that would be interested in it?
So was it not posted on the town website, this internship program? I'm quite sure that it was.
It was,
Um,
yeah.
And so I don't know, Cobra, to answer your question, how much more broad we can be in getting it out there.
And I think last time around, it was also sent through the listserv,
Yes,
the
that's
email that goes
correct.
out. And I believe that was also a suggestion.
Okay.
Well, one thing's for sure. There's nothing in the bylaws about informal approaches to doing anything. That's just human nature.
All right.
So
Okay.
so now
Okay. All right. Thank you.
people talk.
Thank you, Cobra.
I have a question. If we're trying to expand, is there a restriction on whether or not someone is in Schenectady County versus in Niskayuna? And I say that like there's some organizations in Schenectady that may have more of the target audience we're looking for, but are not Niskayuna residents. So I'm just trying to get clarification. When we look, like we talked about going to Union College and whatnot, well, more than likely, the students that you find that meet the categories we're looking for are probably not going to be from Niskayuna. They'll be going to Union, but they won't be Niskayuna residents.
Mhm.
And so that's where I'm trying to get clarification. Are we solely looking at, or is this set so that in the bylaws, so that even if we find people who are interested, they have to be a resident of Niskayuna?
Cobra, you want to answer that?
Yes. I brought this up the last time as well about locale. Is clearly we usually, I think, reach out to Union College. Am I correct? But, right? We did last time, right?
No,
So
last time it was only for school students.
it's okay. So see, this is what I'm saying. Like Union College is here, but technically not in the town of Niskayuna. It's in the county of Schenectady. So I think, I mean, to me, we're limiting our pool here. You know, we're still in the middle of, the kids are back, and to me, COVID is still lingering. Like we need to do what people have a lot on their plate. Kids have a lot on their plate. Like, we clearly have a lot of work to do in the work groups. We need the interns. The work groups can need the assistants to even out the workload, especially when you only have a few that are doing the work. So what do we do here? The bylaws are great, but bylaws, if they're limiting, what do we do? Are bylaws amended?
I think it's a great question, Cobra, and I think we've bounced this around meeting after meeting about who should be allowed to participate in the work. And I think frustration level is high right now. So I think what I would recommend is that we take this back to the leadership group, come up with a decision whether we want to open this up to Schenectady County or the city of Schenectady, and just make the decision to broaden the pool because we need hands on deck to do the work. I don't think the bylaws specifically mention this at all. So that may be a loophole. Counselor Finnan, maybe you would want to weigh in on that, but I mean, that's my own feeling. Okay.
No, I was just going to say the same thing, that I think the bylaws are kind of silent on this topic, but I think that's a question for Council Finnan. Of whether we can go outside of Niskayuna to Schenectady. That's a question to the town.
And it's a question also of what's our ultimate goal? Do we want those who are within minority groups to have an opportunity to experience a task force that's working towards equity and justice? And that's also a very strong impact. Or do we want to limit it to just Niskayuna residents that could have an impact but are clearly not that interested right now? So the balance of good intent and impact. I think it's important for minority groups to see minority members of the community doing things with very high ideals and expectations and getting work done. When they can see themselves in different roles, I think that has a far-reaching impact that we truly won't understand till decades to come.
Well said. And you're absolutely correct. So I think that David's idea that we are going to have to revisit this at the leadership and at the leadership committee and come up with a policy, because we desperately need to expand our pool. Desperately need. And once again, as I said this before, to me, I think that providing opportunities for youth, this is one of the most important things that we can do. And when you think about it, uh, uh, even if a youth or the youth's family doesn't live in Niskayuna, maybe by with our influence, some of those persons may want to move to Niskayuna. Who knows? You know. So we can influence people that way as well. So, but nevertheless, uh, thank you for your report. I tell you, yeah, I think you've had 3 reports tonight. I you I once again, I come on, let's give her a hand. My God, I think you are a super trooper in terms of your commitment here. I applaud you, and most importantly, I really appreciate your dedication. Thank you. And we appreciate Sabrina too. Come on. For sure. Uh, any other topics that we need to bring up? Yes.
I just had a question. The data and best practices work group report and the appendices, how do we share that with the town? You know, because that's something that the next step is, because we want to be part of the town plan now. So we want to help the town planner with a comprehensive report. So how do we share the report with the town?
Well, I have some ideas. First of all, the report that I saw earlier, or the written report, or the presentation, I thought there need to be some significant revisions before we submit that. And so what I'd like to do is to if you could let me know when the next. I know you said you disbanded.
Yeah, we've disbanded.
Well,
We've
can
done
you-
our work.
Can you
There's nothing more we can do, but I can look
can
at
you
what.
reassemble like the Avengers?
Well, Sabrina
And,
and I are here.
Can you reassemble?
Yes, we'll
And,
work on it.
And once again, please let me know when you're meeting, okay? Because I really would like to provide some input in terms of how we can really sharpen up the final report.
Yeah, we're not meeting. So if you can call a meeting and we'll come to it.
Oh,
That works.
oh shucks.
You asked.
Thank you. I definitely will. All right. Thank you.
And I think in that same vein, I think that reports, the place for that report is the final report that goes to the town, the annual report. I mean, the comprehensive report can be an appendices, but I think that's when we can sharpen the pencils on that report, is to make it a part of the annual report to the town. So the main body of that can be smaller, and then the other report can go as a comprehensive appendices or something
Agreed.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I had is that the town planner is working on it now, right? So at least the part that we are ready to help her with the comprehensive plan, I can do that informally too, and say, we're ready to help, but this is coming down the road. But basically, she is looking for help with data and, because she was there at the August meeting and she said, wow, if we had this would be great. So,
So I think in the interest of timeliness, Preeti, if you want to send it to me with the name of the individual or individuals that need to get it,
okay,
I will get it to them,
okay, great.
please.
All right.
So they have it as a live working document from which to
Alright.
work off of now when they need it.
Okay.
And then we can still, and then as as another mention in the annual report, we can say this information has been passed along to,
Laura Robinson, yeah. Okay, great. Thanks.
thank you.
And incidentally, when you send that report, you want to make sure that you indicate it's preliminary and is not for citation. Okay.
What says it's a report to the task force?
Right. But, we want to indicate if you're going to send it to someone outside, indicate that this is preliminary. It's not for citation, just so we can get a feel for what's going on. Okay. All right. Sure. Sure. Um, any other questions, comments, or testimonials? Yes.
I feel like I missed something. I'm just trying to figure out with the retreat. If we're meeting tonight in person, and I'll respect whatever people's decisions are, I know it's comfortable at home and whatnot, but I'm just wondering if it's okay to meet here in person. Is it not okay to do the retreat in person, or
Well,
was
see,
that
here is a challenge. Uh, the retreat is not officially a task force retreat.
right?
Okay. Because if it's
Business.
if it's a task force retreat, then it's got to be televised. All right.
Okay.
So we're not even going to mention Niskayuna. The word Niskayuna won't come up. Okay. Now we ain't saying California won't come up. We ain't saying Albany won't come up.
Okay.
We won't say Schenectady won't come up, but Niskayuna won't come up. All right.
Okay.
So I guess the point is that for now, what we can do is to have a virtual retreat. However, that will not preclude our having an in-person retreat further down the road. Okay. That will take a little more planning, et cetera, et cetera. But and of course, it would also have to have buy-in. Okay. Okay. Because some folks might not want to be able to come. All right. But the reality is that I would love for us to have an in-person retreat. Okay. There's nothing like being in person, laughing and joking, eating. Okay. Drinking non-alcoholic beverages, I guess, and just having a good time
Mhm.
and learning and growing with each other. Okay, there's nothing like that.
For me, it's easier to. It just feels more inclusive and natural when I'm looking around the room at
It doesn't.
people,
It just.
as opposed to, and
I tell you,
that to me lends credence to what we're supposed to be doing, as the retreat, which is coming together and sharing our views and trying to understand one
well,
another
I tell you
better,
what.
so.
This is what I
So.
will do then. Okay,
Mhm.
at uh, at the virtual retreat, one of the things we'll do is we'll essentially canvas folk and see who'll be really interested in later on down the road
Mhm.
having an in-person retreat. And if we want an in-person retreat, again, uh, this will be a general retreat, not about the task force.
Right.
We're just professionals coming together, trying to learn how to work together and to know each other better. Okay, we want to do that, then I'm ready. Okay, so we hey, just say the word. Or when I was a kid, we would come up and say, as teenagers, we would say, "You ain't said nothing but a word." Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Excellent.
Thanks,
So-
Jocelyn. And
Mhm.
Doc, needless to say, attendance to this retreat is very important because then it's like preaching to the choir.
It is preaching to, you're right, you're right.
So we all know the date. That's the last Saturday, which is March 26, 9 a.m. to noon.
Yes.
Now,
Virtual.
I had 9 to 11 originally in my calendar when I just went to change it in my phone. Is it in fact 9 to noon? I
Well,
don't,
well, here's the deal.
Either way-
I want 9 to noon, but if we can finish by 9 to 11, that's cool.
oh, okay, cool.
Just want a
I'll
little
leave it at 9 to
flexibility.
noon in my
Yeah.
phone.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it is virtual, and we'll make sure we send a lot of reminders for folks to sign up. I understand it's a Saturday. There's life happening, but life's happening all the time.
Yeah, that Saturday, I will probably take it from my car. It's my son's graduation that got postponed due to COVID. So we're on our way to Baltimore. So hopefully it's from here to Baltimore. The service is good. So I'll participate in the car.
Oh, great, great. And again, the virtue of a virtual retreat, all right? And congratulations to graduation. Congratulations. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. But to be honest, one last note. Uh, to your point, when we meet in person, the meeting does feel better, doesn't it? It seems like we accomplish more. I don't know what it is. It's just a feeling. And so yeah, we must follow up with a in-person retreat. Okay, we're gonna make that happen. I'm glad that you brought that up. All right, this is just part one. All right. Any other questions, comments, or testimonials before we close out tonight? Well, let me just say this. I really appreciate we went a little longer. Ironically enough, we didn't have a quorum. We went a little longer. I tell you what, I feel like we accomplished some stuff tonight, don't you? Oh, you want to say, come on
I
in.
do.
Come on.
I would like to maybe in some of our meetings try and really, as a racial equity task force, really look at white supremacy culture and the attempt to dismantle it, especially within power structures like task force is, like the town hall, those different places. If we can start to do some work regarding that, I think that helps inform other equity issues by really being able to give language to some of the things we do and some of our systems of thinking. It's some work I've been doing on my own in other spheres, and I think it helps give labels to things. And it's not about like, oh, you awful white people. It's about going, look at this system and how can we dismantle that and create a space and hold space for diversity. So if we could add that to some part of maybe the workshop or retreat,
Sure.
or maybe having 15 minutes within a task force meeting of discussing that and doing work towards that, I think that would give us some senses of accomplishment as well. And of course, the choir's here. I know I'm preaching to it, but I think it also gives other town members, if they're looking at our recordings, a moment of going, oh, what are they talking about there? Like what? Oh, and it just is a way to propagate information.
That is an excellent suggestion. In fact, I'll go even further. As we're discussing these issues, it certainly is appropriate for us to incorporate the very language of anti-racism in our very dialogue. It certainly fits, and I certainly have sprinkled some in my discussions about what is that, public safety. All right, but we certainly can incorporate that language throughout to make ourselves to be more aware and be more purposeful.
And really educating people in what those things are and truly understanding anti-racism and white supremacy culture and how to dismantle it.
Absolutely. Excellent. Thank you. My goodness. Well, I tell you what, anybody listening to this tape tonight, watch this tape tonight, is going to grab their popcorn because this is okay. Was not a dull meeting. All right. Anything else before we close out? All right, then I just want to say, I want you to know how much every last one of you, how much I appreciate you investing your time tonight. Okay. And I want to thank you for coming. All right. And can we entertain a motion to adjourn? Okay. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Now we know that's informal because we don't have a quorum, but what the hey, it felt good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank y'all for coming.